Let's talk about something that we don't usually call what it is, and that is approval addiction. Let me explain. Most people don't think of themselves as being approval seekers. They just consider themselves as being just kind people, maybe considerate or easygoing. But if you are constantly checking in on how you think you're being perceived by others, or if you replay a conversation in your head over and over and over to make sure that you said the right things, or you might be scanning a person's facial expressions or body language when you're sharing something just to be sure that they're not upset with you. Or if your mood tends to shift dependent on the mood of others. For example, if your spouse walks into the house after a long day of work and he or she is in a really bad mood, you can feel the tension, and then your mood suddenly changes based upon his or her mood. That isn't about being like a good or kind person. What I am talking about here is survival.
Hey, and welcome to Masks Off Inner Freedom for People Pleasers and Perfectionists. This is a podcast for those who are tired of holding it all together. I'm Kim Gross, your host, and if you've ever felt like you're doing all the right things, but still feel anxious, disconnected, or quietly burned out, you're in the right place. Here we talk about the patterns you don't even realize you're living inside of: self-abandonment, over-functioning, chasing approval, and mistaking productivity for your worth, and more. This isn't about fixing yourself. It's about remembering who you were before you learned to perform, perfect, and please to belong. Each week, we'll slow things down. We'll unpack the nervous system, the inner critic, and the subtle ways that you learned to disconnect from your true self so you can stop living from pressure and start living from presence. This is your space to take the masks off, so let's begin.
This topic is very near and dear to my heart because it is something I have struggled with for decades, and it can still show up at times. I'm not gonna lie. So approval becomes addictive when at some point in your life it felt like safety. So in other words, if you felt like you were being liked by others or you were being accepted, then you felt okay. You felt safe. On the flip side, if you felt like you upset someone with something that you said or did, that felt dangerous, and that was dysregulating to your nervous system. So if you feel a hit of relief when someone says, "It's fine, it's okay, don't worry about it, you're good," then that would make sense. You can see how that is a survival strategy because your nervous system learned early on that you're safe when you're approved of. Or the other piece of it with the approval and the addiction to approval is that you might achieve and go after getting accolades, because then that makes you feel worthy and that makes you feel enough. I've shared with you many times on this podcast that I have a book and it's called Free to Be, A Pathway to Inner Liberation. If you are new to this podcast and you're just dropping in for the very first time, thank you so much for being here. And my book, Free to Be, A Pathway to Inner Liberation, is a book that I wrote based on 21 years worth of my journals. So it's a very vulnerable share. It's part memoir, it's part self-help. And I share in the book how I struggled with not having approval or seeking out approval and a validation by wearing the perfection mask or the performing mask or the pleasing mask. So I want to share with you an excerpt from the book that helps to support what I'm saying to you. So I write in the book that because I was suffering from a perpetual case of unworthy-itis, I made up that word, I doubled down on my own efforts to perform, perfect, and please. Constantly performing and receiving external validation distracted me from the deep pain I was carrying. So like right there, I'm saying that by seeking external validation, and that AKA what we're talking about in this episode today is being addicted to the approval of others, because when I had all these accolades and all these achievements, then I felt like I was worthy. Mind you, I was 10 years old at the time, and that this all started for me. So so I continue writing. In 8th grade, I received so many accolades that I practically floated through the school hallways. I became president of the student council, and I gave speech on graduation night. I also received an award for being an outstanding student, and the road didn't stop there. I eventually fell into the lead role I had always wanted. I went on to become captain of the softball team, and I joined the marching band, got elected into National Honor Society, and was named president of my junior class. I became a starter on the soccer team. I played for 4 years, and then I was into horseback riding as well. So here's the problem. The problem was, during all this time, I was wearing masks in each of those roles. My overall intentions had changed. Back when I was 10, when I genuinely believed I would make a great Snow White, I was being my truest self. Pause for a second.
Before we keep going, I want to take a moment to share something really close to my heart. If you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, wow, this feels familiar, the people-pleasing, the perfectionism, the constant self-pressure, I wrote a book just for you. It's called Free to Be, A Pathway to Inner Liberation, and it's part memoir, part healing guide. I share my own journey of learning how to stop living in victimhood, take off the masks, and come home to myself, but not by fixing myself, by understanding my patterns with compassion. This isn't a book full of fluff or quick fixes. It's honest, it's grounding, and it's for anyone who's ready to live with more peace and freedom. You can find Free to Be on Amazon. And if the book resonates with you, I would be so grateful if you would take a moment to leave a review. Even a few words can really help others to find it.
So I wrote earlier in the book about how I tried out for the role of Snow White when I was 10. I was told that I couldn't get the role because I couldn't sing. So it was a devastating, pivotal moment for me at that young age. And so I wrote about that earlier. In order to get the full story, you'll have to get the book to get all of that. But let me go back to this. So when I was 10 years old and I tried out for Snow White, I authentically and genuinely believed I would make a great Snow White. I didn't care whether I could sing or not. I didn't know. I just was like, okay, I'm going to go be Snow White. But in high school, I only wanted to be seen in order to know that I was enough. That's the part that I'm trying to really hone in on. For God's sake, I played the flute, but I couldn't play and march at the same time. By all reasonable standards, I was excelling, but none of it was authentic. So the key here is that two things that I said in that passage. One is I was receiving the external validation. I was seeking it. I was seeking the external validation. I was addicted to the external validation because, one, it kept me distracted from a deep wound or pain that was called I'm not worthy enough. And two, when I was wearing the masks and I was performing and perfecting and pleasing, that it was, as I said in the passage, I was wearing the masks in each of the roles, but my overall intention changed. In high school, I only wanted to be seen in order to know that I was enough. So basically, I'm saying the same thing twice. At the end of the day, the pain, the wound that we carry when we have these tendencies to become addicted to seeking approval from others is that we deep down underneath do not believe or feel like we are worthy enough or that we are good enough. There's a wound there that started most likely in early childhood, where someone in your life, a caretaker, maybe it was a teacher, maybe it was a coach, implied and led you to believe that you were not okay in some way. And for me, I share the story all the time. Before the age of 10, when I was just being a kid, playing in the snow, riding my bike, just being my true authentic self, connecting in nature, that was no longer enough. Because a teacher said to me that I was not working to my potential. He told my mom that Kim is capable of doing more and she's just being an average student and she's capable of so much more. That he didn't intend to have such an impact on me, but that had a major, major impact on the way that I saw myself. And that's the pivotal moment at which I started to perform, perfect, and please. So that was like the way in which I was seeking approval through accolades, but there are other ways in which I did it. And I'm sure if you were to think about your own childhood or middle school, high school, you might find examples or stories in your own life that relate to what I'm saying. And, I can remember that in middle school and high school, I had a lot of parties at my house because my house seemed to be the go-to house. My parents they weren't strict, and they didn't say anything. If they knew that we were drinking in the house, if they knew it, they didn't say anything, or they were just being oblivious. But nonetheless, everybody wanted to come to my house to hang out. Plus, my mom was like super friendly. She was always trying to get my friends to have food, like, here, have something to eat. Like, everybody loved my parents. So here I am having all of these parties. Even at the age of like 12 and 13, we were drinking in my attic. And I honestly, looking back on it, hate it. I hate it that happened. It's not something that I wanted to do. I felt pressure to do it because I wanted to be liked. I wanted the approval, and I wanted to fit in. Now, Brene Brown says there's a huge difference between fitting in and belonging. We're all wired, all of us, to belong. Even animals, most of the time, they travel in herds. In fact, at my house in New York, I have a lot of woods behind the house, and there's this family of deer, about 5 of them. And every morning, the 5 deer go one direction in the morning, and then in the evening they come back. But they're always traveling together. And even when the mama deer, I'm not sure what you call it, the mama deer, whatever, has the baby. I think the babies are the doe, right? When they have little ones, like, the little ones can get a little bit away from the herd, but they're always like together, And so there's this need for belonging. Well, we have the same. We come from a time when we lived in tribes and we were all together. Aunts, cousins, uncles, they say it takes a village to raise a family, and there's a reason why they say that, because at one point that's how it was. Now we're all so separated, and we live in our small nuclear families, and we don't even see extended family all that much. I can tell you that when I was a kid growing up, I had 21 first cousins on my dad's side, and he was one of 6. And we would see family all the time. Like, there would be reunions or get-togethers, and even the same with the family on my mom's side. We were always getting together with extended family for picnics and so on and so forth. I'm sure that still exists, but I don't think it exists as much. So why am I even talking about that? To really highlight the importance of belonging. We all want to belong and know that we matter. But what happens is, and this is what Brene Brown talks about so eloquently, is that what we often do is we go into a place of trying to fit in. And when we try to fit in with a group or a clique or something, a group of people, we most likely, most of the time, betray ourselves. We betray our authentic selves. We go against what we want to do. We go against what we believe in because we're trying to seek the approval of others. And that's what I'm saying about the parties that I had in middle school and high school. I did not want to drink. I didn't like drinking. I didn't want to have the parties. I didn't want to get in trouble. But my friends thought I was cool. So I was fitting in because I was the cool one with the cool house. So here's what I'm saying is, like, seeking approval from others comes from the outside. It's external. And when your sense, and this is the key right here, when your sense of okayness lives outside of you, then that peace, that feeling of enoughness is always temporary. And that I found to be very true, because when the approval went away, there was an emptiness, there was a numbness, there was a dullness. Here's another example. From the time I was probably 12 on, once I hit puberty, again, another story that I write about in my book, my body changed drastically and I put on a lot of weight, and I was really, really big compared to the rest of my classmates. And I had so much shame around my body image through middle school and through high school. Also probably part of why I had the parties, because I felt so unworthy. I felt so ashamed. I actually loathed myself for the way that I looked. And then during the few times, short periods of times in high school, and then throughout my adult life as well, whenever I would go on a diet and I would lose some weight and I would slim down, I would get so many compliments. Oh my God, you look amazing. You look so good. Wow, you lost so much weight. All that approval felt amazing. It felt so good that someone saw and acknowledged my effort to lose weight. But then surely every single time without fail, I would start to put the pounds back on and gain the weight. And then all of a sudden, the compliments are gone, the approval's gone. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, where is it all? Like, I was addicted to it. I needed to have that approval from others. And it was because it was always on the outside. I didn't have long-lasting peace or self-worth. So you can see why that can be a problem when the approval is on the outside and our sense of being okay or not okay lives outside of us and it doesn't come from our own internal barometer, how that can be a problem. And so what I'm really wanting to stress here is that I'm not trying to demonize people pleasing, because there is a strong side to being a people pleaser. For sure, people pleasers are some of the kindest, thoughtful, cooperative, nice people, right? And caring and helpful. So there is a plus side and upside to being a people pleaser, for sure. But people pleasers also have their wounded part. And so that's why this is not about putting people pleasers down or demonizing or making you wrong in any way, shape, or form. This is not about making you wrong. This episode is really about helping you to understand. So like this whole month of February is about understanding and having an awareness of people-pleasing tendencies. And when you have more awareness, then you can start to loosen the grip. You can start to loosen the spell that people-pleasing can have over you. Because at the end of the day, having people-pleasing tendencies is none other than a pattern. It's a pattern that you have been living and playing out for a long time. There are belief systems that are attached to this pattern, and there are habits that are attached. And when you can frame it that way, when you can realize that people-pleasing tendencies is nothing more than a pattern, and it's not who you are, and you're not broken, and you're not wrong, you can put some space between the pattern and who you actually are. The problem is so many of us believe that when we play out the pattern or we act out one of these behaviors, that there's something inherently wrong or bad about us. And that's the part that I want to dismantle. That's what's so important to me, is to raise the awareness, to help people understand that you're not broken, you're not bad, you're not wrong, you're not a defect. You're not a piece of shit like you might think that you are. This is nothing more than a pattern that you have been playing out, a survival pattern at that. It's just that it's no longer serving you. So when you start to have the awareness of the pattern, and then you can start to own it and take responsibility for it, then you can learn what to do to heal it. And then you start to shift. You will see how it changes dramatically how you feel about yourself. So here are a couple of journal prompts for you. If you are a journaler like I am, you can journal about them. And if you don't like to journal, you don't like to write, or you're just listening to this episode in the car, you can just really reflect on these questions and then maybe come back to it later if you want to write down your responses. So the first thing is, where do you look for approval without even realizing it? Where do you look for approval from others without even realizing it? Second question, whose reactions impact your mood the most? Like I said, it could be that when your spouse comes in the room, or maybe it's your kids if you are worrying about your kids all the time, or maybe it's your parent, and whenever you go over to visit your parent or parents and they say things to you that bring you right back to childhood, and it completely changes your mood, and you don't speak up, and you don't set a boundary, and you don't tell them that what they're saying is hurtful, it can really impact your mood. You might go into seeing them feeling good, feeling happy and joyful, and then leaving and feeling like, what the just happened? Why do I feel so crappy? Next question, who do you fear, or what do you fear? What do you fear would happen if you disappointed someone? Really think about that one. What do you fear would happen if you disappointed someone? Especially if it's maybe your child, if it's your spouse, if you disappointed your boss, could be if you disappointed your parents. I spoke about that one a lot in the last episode. If you are interested in going back and listening to that one on micro yeses, right? That's another reason why we have all these micro yeses, because we're saying yes, 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 when we really want to say no, because we, at the end of the day, don't want to disappoint a single person, and we're seeking the approval of others. We want that approval. So if you're saying yes all the time and not saying no and setting boundaries, people are going to be approving of that. They're gonna that dance with you, but you won't like it, because I guarantee you will feel, or do feel, burned out, exhausted, overwhelmed, and resentful. That's what ends up happening to people with people-pleasing tendencies. And then because the stress of all of that builds, and you're feeling stressed out because you can't say no and set boundaries, and you don't take care of yourself first, that's when you can end up with chronic health issues, or anxiety, or depression, or just downright feeling miserable with your life. And that's why I do this podcast. That's why I come on every week for over 300 episodes, because I get it. I've lived it. I've walked the path. I've done the inner work, and I know what it takes to get to the other side. I know how to get to the place of having more joy, so much inner peace, so much freedom, never thought possible. It's like it feels surreal. And sometimes I want people to pinch me because I can't believe that this is my life. I just only used to hear about people talking about having inner peace and joy and freedom and abundance and love and gratitude. And I'm like, okay, yeah, like that sounds like pie in the sky kind of stuff. That's not reality for Kim here. That's just for certain people. But I can tell you, because I have persevered and I continue to do the inner healing work every single day, that I'm there now. And if you're thinking to yourself, especially if you're new to this podcast, like, what do you mean, Kim? What do you mean when you say inner healing work? Like, what does that even mean? If you are curious and you want to know more about what the work entails, then I invite you or encourage you to just reach out to me, email me, kim@kimgrosscoaching.com, or you can go on my website and you can book a free call with me and I can tell you about it. And if it sounds like something that you're interested in, then yeah, let's continue to go deeper and do the work together. So I just want to end by sharing with you a quote from Melanie Beatty, who is one of my favorite wisdom teachers. I learned so much from her, and so much of my healing has come from learning from her. So the quote is this from her: "Today, I will let go of my need for approval and my need to be liked. Instead, I will choose to like and approve of myself. The people who count, including me, will respect me when I am true to who I really am." And then, of course, another quote, a famous quote that really kind of supports that and goes hand in hand with what I just read, is "To thy own self be true."
As we wrap up today's episode, I just want to say thank you for being here and for taking this time for yourself. If this episode resonated with you, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the podcast or leave a review. Even a quick star rating helps more people find this space and reminds the algorithms that these conversations matter. And I'd love to hear from you. If you have a question, a takeaway, or something that came up while you were listening, leave a comment or send it in. Let's keep the conversation going. This podcast isn't meant to be a one-way street. It's meant to feel like a community. If you want to learn more about me, my work, or the ways we can go deeper together, you can visit my website. All the details are there. Until next time, take a breath, take the mask off, and be gentle with yourself. I'll see you soon.